Okay. So, 15s, if you could grab a seat, please, and thank you. I'll wait till everybody's ready, and then I will just do a really super quick demo. And then 35s. I know I already said this about 10 times, but I'm going to do a throwing demo with the 35s. So if you could wedge up a couple, 2-3 balls of clay at about a pound, pound and a half. Make sure you have a picture of the shape that you're looking for, and I'll do a quick throwing demo for them. 25s, if you want to join the throwing demo, you can do that as well. 15s, I'm going to just show you a little bit about carving, and then have you sort of try and finish your stamps today and tomorrow. And then Monday, start actually building something in between while we're waiting for these stamps to dry. Our end goal is to make a set of a bowl and a cup with our own clay stamps. Good Lord, I'm terrible at video. So we're going to make a clay bowl, folded bowl, and a cup with our own stamps. That's kind of the end goal. That's the reason why we're making these stamps. Okay? Ready? As soon as I'm done talking, and don't let me forget to do this, this seating chart sort of got stuck somewhere around here, and it didn't keep moving around, and it looks like people have moved around a little bit, which is fine. Where you are today is where you have to sit for the rest of the semester. Once this goes around the room for it's Alberta Health Services regulation that we have to have a seating plan that people stay in the same spot for the semester. So I will pass this around. There's table numbers, and just make sure you orient the page. These boxes up here are the teacher's desk up here. So I'll come around when I come around to talk to you, and we'll get that filled in. Okay? Ready? Okay. 15s, your eyes are up this direction, so you can see the screen behind me there, because these little puppies are super small. Okay. I'm terrible. Oh, this is upside down, that's why. There. That's better. Okay, so yesterday we made some stamp blanks, right? Trying to make sure, gentlemen, looking up here and listening, I promise I won't talk very long, okay? You're going to try and make sure that the actual part, here's the flat part that the stamp's going to go on, the carving, that this part here is, sort of pinky finger thickness. You don't want this to get too thin. This guy right here, I made this on purpose too thin, because once this gets pressed into the clay, these tend to bend. Oh, I broke it. They tend to bend and break when they're too thin. So that did exactly what I thought it might. So, for a refresher, you're going to make a little ball. Okay, for anybody who wasn't here yesterday. Then you will just, because a little disc is too hard to hold in your hands to press into the clay, and just make a little sort of place for your fingers to sort of naturally hold onto the stamp. And then on the table, tap it on the table to make a nice flat spot. And then make sure that this shape is the shape that you want it to be. Whether you want it to be diamond shape, right? So there's my little diamond stamp. Whether you want it to be round. This one is feather shaped, so that when I press it into clay, it's feathered, and it's just got a little handle here to hold on to. Okay, so that little stamp, I'm going to let it sit. I'll mold it and shape it to the shape I want, and then I'll let it sit until it gets leather hard. Overnight in your humidor, they do start to get quite hard. Even in your humidor will even everything out. This one here is past leather hard. It's black leather hard. Like, I can't bend it. I'm really pressing hard. I can't bend it. It will not take my fingerprint at all. One thing I want you to do is, this is called fettling knife. So you'll set that down and sort of cut the edges so that that edge is nice and sharp. So a leather hard piece, see how that comes off in a nice kind of almost like chocolate, leaves a nice sharp edge. You can still smooth that edge, but it's perfect ready to carve into. Now if I were to take that stamp that I just finished and try to carve into it, I'll start with my pin tool, because that's already in my toolkit. Okay, and I will start to do a carving. See all those little crumbs? If you try to wipe those crumbs away when the clay is wet, sometimes they just go into your grooves and then they smoosh back into the clay. So that's why waiting till the clay is leather hard, like this one's leather hard, now when I carve in, it still makes those little crumbs, but those crumbs are harder, and with a paintbrush, sorry guys. With a paintbrush, those little crumbs will just fall away. And you can get them out of the cracks without smooshing the clay, right? So the pin tool will work really good. Then what you need is you need something with sort of a V-shaped tip. This tool here is, I don't know where I got this, Princess Auto, I think. That little V-shaped tip, and a tool like this is really handy too. I'm terrible at this video thing. If you carve that just a little bit deeper, the V-shaped tool will make the groove a little bit deeper so that it's going to show up in the clay a lot better. Okay, so then I'll brush the crumbs away, get myself a little bit of plastic clay. And even though this has not been fired yet, what did I do with that one? There. Even though this hasn't been fired yet, I can press it into the clay because it's leather hard, and you can see what it looks like when it's carved out. It's upside down, I know. Okay. Now I can see that maybe it's not deep enough, maybe it is deep enough. If it's not deep enough, you can go back and carve some more. If it is deep enough, then you can set it aside and let it dry. When it's completely dry, like this one that I made yesterday, it can go in the kiln and be fired and it'll come out this color, okay? So you can use them even as long as they're not plastic anymore, as long as they're leather hard, they can be used. And you can test them on the clay to see if they will actually make an indentation in the clay that's going to show up when we actually go to make our pieces. Another thing you can do, we'll make another little stamp here real quick. Instead of just carving, you can find interesting textures and you can press them into the clay. So if you look at this one, this is a pen. Oh, good Lord. So the tip of this pen is interesting. This side's interesting too. So I'm going to take that part of the pen and put it in there. And then this part almost looks like a flower. And I can make an impression stamp that once this is dry, I can press that into the clay. I have one here that's already fired that will make a really interesting impression in the clay. And that took me how long, right? Didn't take very long at all. So you've got your signature stamp. If you want, you can make them all kind of, just utilitarian like this. But if you really want to, I saw lots of designs. This is my signature stamp with the little goddess figure on it, and the head is the stamp. You can make them fancy or you can make them some plain. In the end, I would like at least 2 really good texture stamps. And if they can be a texture stamp that you can repeat over and over again, that's really good. So maybe something that has a really simple design. 1 signature stamp and at least 2 really good texture stamps that work really well. Okay? I brought this out. I wanted to show you these. So this is the clay that we're using right here. Look up here and listen. This is the 340 clay. That's the color that it fires to after the glaze firing. So I took this ruler and I pressed it into some clay. I cut it out. I stuck it in the kiln twice because each piece of clay goes through the kiln twice. And this is how much it shrinks. Right? So there you can see the evidence of the clay and how it shrinks. I made it a little wider than that, but you can see how much that clay actually shrinks. by looking at that. So, yeah. The other thing I wanted to share with you is joining clay, okay? My period 1 class already knew how to do this. I'm sure lots of you do know how to do this. So let's say, look up here and listen. You have this piece of clay, and you want to make a stamp on the bottom. And I want to make the top sort of make a little pinch pot. And I want to attach that piece onto that piece. Make myself a little mushroom stamp. Okay? Now, if I stick that piece of clay on that piece of clay, it will stick just fine right now while the clay is wet. As soon as the clay starts to dry, the only thing that's holding these two pieces of clay together right now is water. As soon as the water evaporates, that clay is going to fall apart. Okay? So to join two pieces of clay together, if you want to join two pieces of clay together, I'm sure some of you have done this before. You have your pin tool, okay? And what you're going to do is on the surface that you want to join, you're going to make little X's with your and this surface I'm going to join, I'm going to make some X's, okay? Then I will open up my Darvon water, this little bottle of water, and with my paintbrush, I will add a little bit of water to that surface, a little bit of water to that surface. So the two surfaces that are going to get joined together both get scored with the scoring tool and Darvon water. Then what you do, this is really important, you do it again. Score, score, Darvon water, Darvon water, and then you join your two pieces and you give it a little bit of a jiggle. Give it a little pressure and a little bit of a jiggle. So that's a permanent bond between those two. Because what happens is the clay will stick together like this, just fine. Two pieces of clay will stick together just fine like that with water, because the water creates suction. As soon as the water evaporates, those two pieces will fall apart. Guaranteed. Seen it a billion times. People who make bowls like this and don't score the corners well enough, they open back up again. If you score, look up here and listen. Scoring makes those grooves in the clay that causes the clay to join together like this. So that's good. That's a good solid bond. It's like a dovetail joint in the corner of a cabinet. But there's also those little holes over here that could potentially be air bubbles. The Darvon water breaks down the clay and fills those for us, and then as it shrinks and dries, it pulls together for a very permanent bond. Okay, so that's a permanent bond with that little guy. If you start to find that your clay is getting too dry, there's not a lot we can do once it starts to get too dry. You're better off just getting some new clay. What I like about this project is that you really get to know the stages of clay and you understand how clay works on a very small scale so that you can make mistakes. This got left out too long, and when I start to carve it, it's getting too crumbly maybe. So I can just throw this up and do another one, and it takes me like 5 seconds to do another one. Okay? We're going to keep the crumbs on the table. I did not give you enough time to clean up yesterday, and so the tables got left with quite a bit of clay dust on them. So we're going to make sure this time around that we clean the tables really well, and I'll make sure you have enough time to do that. Okay? Sound good? All right, so just so that you know,